Hello, this story is called Max Smith's Adventures in Petlandia. This is Max's Christmas gift. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. Max Smith lived in Whitsett, North Carolina, and dreamt of being a star with his very own TV show and a chauffeur-driven car. But being cute and furry made stardom rather tough, especially when the only words he knew were woof and rough. Feeling brave, he folded up his PJs in a flannel, along with some ideas for his Max Smith YouTube channel. Sneaking into Miss Smith's room, he scrawled a doggy note, then kissed her gently on the cheek and went to get his coat. Scampering through the moonlit streets with thoughts of being wealthy, Max Smith stopped beside a sign and thought, "I'll take a selfie." Instapaw. Pulling out his iPhone, he posted and took a snap, then headed to the airport while squinting at his map. Max Smith was excited because he'd never flown before, unless you count that time he slammed a laptop on his paw. And as the plane took off, he thought of A-list hounds and mutts while trying to squish his nose into a tiny bag of nuts. When Max Smith got to Hollywood, he set up several meets, but most of them went wrong because he tinkled on the seats. And even though he tried his best, the top dogs weren't impressed. "We've seen your act before, kid, and look how you're dressed." With failure after failure, Max Smith's confidence was shrinking, but then he saw a saxophone, which kind of got him thinking. "I'll need to learn some new tricks to really make me shine, and then I'll make some videos and post them all online." Woof, 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 woofity, woof, 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 bark, woof, 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 woof. P.S. Woof. Meanwhile, back in Whitsett, North Carolina, Miss Smith found a note. "My dog thinks he'll be famous. Oh, what a silly goat." But suddenly she looked up and she saw Max Smith on the news. He'd become an online superstar with 50 million views. It seemed dogs can learn new tricks, Miss Smith thought out loud, and even though she missed her friend, she was also very proud. There was Max Smith on a chat show, tooling away while teetering on a unicycle, doing dog ballet. Soon, the world was going wild for Max Smith's jolly tunes. You could even buy a storybook and see him in cartoons. He bought a doggy mansion and a limo and a yacht. He even met the president and partied quite a lot. Other doggies lined up to shake Max Smith by the paw, and scripts for pet-based movies came tumbling through the door. He'd sit and count his money while lounging on his throne, but when he wasn't working, he'd often be alone. Because he felt so lonely, Max Smith bought much more stuff. Even though he had it all, it was never quite enough. He tried some doggy yoga, which he thought might make him happy, but that just tied him up in knots and made him sore and sappy. Then suddenly it hit him as he chewed his oldest bone. What Max Smith wanted most was to be snuggling back at home. Yes, he'd miss his fancy life and palm trees and his chauffeur, but none of that compared to cuddling with Miss Smith on the sofa. He called off all his concerts and he gave away his things, but all the flights home were fully booked, so he clung onto the wings. Hanging on for dear life as the plane took in the skies made Max think of Miss Smith, and tears welled in his eyes. Soaring over Whitsett NC, Max Smith thought he had a hoot, but home is where the heart is, so I'll need a parachute. Fumbling in his suitcase, he found a sparkly gown, then used it as he leapt off to sort of slow him down. Tumbling through the fluffy clouds was really quite a rush, but Max Smith had to slow down, or he'd soon be doggy mush. Just then he saw a mattress on top of a roof, so he steered himself towards the landing and landed with a woof. Jumping into Miss Smith's arms, Max Smith cried with joy. Then Miss Smith squeezed the squeaker in a squishy, squashy toy. Fame is pretty epic, but snuggling is the best, thought Max Smith as he curled up to enjoy a well-earned rest. Miles away in Hollywood, things were much the same, and countless pets arrived each day to search for wealth and fame. They often spoke about the dog who played the saxophone and how he left it all behind because he missed his home. But Max Smith wasn't bothered that he'd given fame the shove, because his trip had taught him that what really counts is love. Miss Smith and Max Smith. The end.